Copus on TV Hamilton. Steve keeps threatening to show that. Okay, no countdown, we'll just do it. Okay. Welcome to School Matters. I'm Joni Copus, and today I have with me Mrs. Kathy Leist, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. So I want to welcome you, Kathy.
Thanks, Joni.
I think this is the first time you've been on here?
It is the first time.
Well, good. Well, glad to have you. We wanted to talk a little bit today about hiring process, a little bit more about the teacher evaluation system. But first, let's get a little background, because you've been in our district for a long time. You started, I think, at George Washington?
I did. I began in 1984. It seems like a long time ago. And I was a French and English teacher at GW. And then I went into instruction for a short period of time, about 2 or 3 years, and had the very fortunate opportunity to be the principal at Adams Elementary. There wasn't a better position than being principal at Adams. I then came back to central office and worked in instruction for another 3 years before my current position, and I've currently been in human resources now for almost 12 years.
Oh wow, that's great. Well, so you've got a nice background of the district and the community, and not only do you hire teachers, but really with human resources, you hire all 1,100 employees.
In our district, human resources encompasses all our employees, both certificated as well as what we consider non-certificated as well. Yes.
And then for the teachers, I know you do usually a spring recruiting, but we work with student teachers. Tell us a little bit how you try to hire the best.
Well, we're almost into the recruiting season right now, and we will begin first of all to identify where are our openings. And we currently, for this next school year, have identified over 15, almost up to 20 openings, and we anticipate there'll be even a few more.
Excuse me, on that said, the last 3 or 4 years, we've had high numbers of retirements, so you've been pretty busy.
We absolutely
50,
have.
60
We've had as high as 78 one year and as low as about 24. This, in my opinion, I'm going to guess that we're going to probably have somewhere between 30 and 40 with the changes in the retirement system. And for lots of various reasons, I believe we're going to be right in the 30 to 40 range. Once we've determined where our openings are, then we are announcing that to the various colleges. We'll be out recruiting at the various college fairs. Earliest one, I think, is in February, and the latest one is in April. And we also look at our student teachers. It is a great opportunity for us to be able to observe and receive feedback from not only the cooperating teacher but also the principal on the potential of the individual. So we do hire a lot of our student teachers.
But how many college visits do you say you do each spring?
We will recruit at about anywhere from 4 to 6 universities, and we try to do as many as we can. You know, it's an opportunity for us to get out and first of all promote our district, as well as for us to sometimes it's easier for us to see students right on campus. And
you talked about the high numbers the last several years, and we've sort of benefited, our district has, from other school districts who might have what they call RIFT or reduction in force, teachers that they had to let go, that sometimes we've been able to hire them from other districts.
We've been very fortunate. You know, we have, for the most part, in my 12 years in my position, we have not been in rift situations very often. I can certainly count them in less on one hand. So we as a district have been very fortunate, and we have been able, a lot of times surrounding districts will notify us that they have individuals that are looking for positions, and in the last couple of years we have been able to recruit in, and that always is in our benefit when we can hire individuals who have 2 or 3 years experience. The learning curve is not quite as steep, and so we benefit, our students benefit from that.
And you must have a good relationship with the HR people at other school districts. Hey, I got this great person, we got to let her go, that type of thing.
And we're talking on a regular basis, because there are times when there are certain positions that are very difficult to fill. And so you look to your colleagues to say, do you have any individual that you could recommend to us?
What are some of the hard positions to fill that not only our district but other districts may struggle to fill?
You know, and that's changing a little over the years. My first answer several years ago would have been special ed. And while that's still a difficult position, it's not, at least at the top of my list of critical positions. I would say that physical therapy, OT, occupational therapy, speech, psychologists sometimes can be difficult, and those really aren't classroom positions, but they're the support positions that we need to have. I would say foreign language. If you have an opening, foreign language can be difficult, as what really is becoming an up-and-coming field is TESOL, teachers of students whose English is not their first language. And that is probably becoming our #1 hardest position to fill.
And then I'm sure you share those with your college visits so they know. I mean, you talked about foreign language. If the colleges aren't getting foreign language teachers out there, you can't fill those slots.
Correct, and so we're out ahead of time announcing those. I think I also need to add life skills, which is what we used to consider home ec.
Yes.
Life skills is very difficult, and your comprehensive science, 7 to 12 would be, I can't leave those two out because those are truly difficult.
Tough to fill. All right, let's talk a little bit about the teacher evaluations, because we've heard a lot about it. It's been a lot of changes and whatever. It's very good, but it's very time consuming. So let's just sort of go around like the history, because it started about 10 years ago, right? This talk of teacher evaluation?
It absolutely did, Joni. It started way back in Senate Bill 2. That was in 2004. And that's really where all of this began, with establishing standards for teachers as well as for principals. So as we talk about this teacher evaluation system, you also need to understand, due to the legislature and the bills that are law now, our principal evaluation system is expected to mirror our teacher evaluation system. So when we talk about the teacher evaluation system, you can understand that the principal one is going to go down that same path.
And I know last year, each school had one teacher that the pilot, if you will, but then Wilson piloted their whole staff, and we were able to learn from that as well.
We've really set our district up for success. We knew this was coming as a part of Race to the Top grant that we have. We had to implement the new evaluation system this year. And so we have been 2 and 3 years in the works of working on how do we make this effective.
And
so,
excuse me, some districts may start next year, right?
Correct.
So
some
again,
districts,
we were ahead of the game.
We absolutely were ahead of the game in our planning as well as the implementation. And so if you go back to what you said, last year we had all principals worked on a pilot with at least one teacher in their building, and then Wilson, the staff as well as the administration, agreed to be our pilot, our guinea pig, if you will. And we were able to get so much valuable information and data from them. What worked, what teachers struggled with, what the administration struggled with. All of that information went back to our evaluation committee. And so when you say, why is this working in our district, I have to give a lot of credit to our evaluation committee. They have done a significant job. And one of the reasons is we've had the same members of that committee for over 10 years. So when we implemented Charlotte Danielson evaluation system several years ago, they were the individuals that helped us work through the initiation and implementation of that system. So they've had history of what it is that will help us to be successful. So this committee has come together and worked through the negotiations. There were some negotiations that needed to occur, discussions with our teachers union, and I need to say that our teachers union has been very supportive of working with us on what do we do to have an instrument, a process that's going to work not only for the administration, but that teachers can buy into and therefore help to produce growth among the teachers.
So the continuity of that committee surely has benefited the whole evaluation system.
It absolutely has, and this committee now, is we're not in the implementation stage anymore, we're now into where are we and what can we do to help our teachers to continue to be successful as we gain more expertise in this area.
Let's talk numbers, because we have about 630 teachers, but I believe you said we only have to evaluate 500 because there's some that are sort of exempt from that.
Part of the law defines who is a classroom teacher, and the law defines a classroom teacher as any individual who's in the classroom actively teaching for at least 50% of their time. So that's going to exclude your guidance counselors, that's going to exclude your speech pathologist, your occupational therapist, physical therapist, any individual that's not in the classroom for 50% of the time. So that does take our numbers down a little bit
But
to
500
500.
is still a high number.
We know that all of our administrators, and that's going to be our principals or our deans, assistant principals, are evaluating anywhere from approximately 18 to 22 teachers.
And let's talk about those people, because they had to be trained. They had to take a 3-day course in order to be certified to go ahead and evaluate, correct?
Part of the new law requires that anyone who is evaluating teachers has to be credentialed, and so that includes a 3-day training that all administrators must complete, and then they have to complete an online assessment. Once that's completed, they're considered credentialed, and that credentialing at the moment is for 2 years. And so we're going to be interested in seeing how the state defines and what they do about the credentials, because our administrators, because we were in a pilot situation last year, are completing their 2nd year of their credentialed. Credentialing.
And as you said, it's constantly changing, whatever. But there's two sides, 50% each. First is the teacher performance. So let's talk a little bit about that.
The teacher performance is what most individuals are familiar with as far as teacher evaluation. And that's where the teachers begin with a self-assessment. How well am I doing? What is it I could do to improve? And a part of this whole system is for professional growth. That's the whole model and what the premise of the model is. And part of that is the self-reflection. Once you've completed that, you then define 2 goals. One that is a district goal, and one is a goal that you, as the professional, want to work on to help grow your professionalism, your knowledge in your field. And then it includes what everyone is aware of, the observations that the administrator does in the classroom. Those observations are lasting anywhere from around 30 to 45 to 60 minutes. There are a minimum of 2, and probably 3 for many of our teachers. And then there are the periodic walkthroughs where an administrator is in a classroom for anywhere from about 7 to 15 minutes just to get an overall view of what's going on, what's the environment like in the classroom, what are the students doing, and the overall encompassing questions, whether it's an observation or a walkthrough, is our students learning.
And those are unannounced, correct?
The
walkthroughs.
The walkthroughs are unannounced, and 2 of our 3 observations are unannounced as well. All of those, the observations, require pre-conferences where valuable information is received from the teacher and the administrator. That's the data. This is very much a data evidence model. So what information can you give me about your students? What's your objective for the day? How will you know if the students learn? We keep going back to, are the students learning? And then there's a post-conference, and that's where we sit down and talk about what the administrator saw, what the teacher what additional information, evidence that they can present regarding the lesson that the administrator observed.
Well, and it used to be, you would evaluate me, and I say, yes, I've done that, I've done that. Now you need the proof of the evidence, so everyone has a binder now. They're actually, putting things in a binder to say, here's my proof of evidence, and the teacher and the evaluator go through it and say, yes, no, maybe, that type of thing. So we may see a lot of binders walking around the schools.
Absolutely. It's very evidence-based. It has taken away a lot of the biases of an administrator and or my feelings, my beliefs, because it's all based on the data. And the hope is, and certainly when our legislatures worked on this, is that there would be continuity among all our buildings, among the administrators, not only in a district, but certainly among all the districts throughout the state.
And that again is 50% of the evaluation model. The other 50 is the student growth performance. So explain a little bit about that, because I guess that's a little bit more controversial, because student test scores can reflect a teacher's evaluation.
The whole idea of what we consider the right-hand side of a grid is the student growth measures. And what really that's defining is how well is each student doing, and have they grown a whole year. And we define that from 2 points in time. So we assess the students at the beginning, and then we're assessing them at the end. And the question is, has each student grown a whole year? So the whole right-hand side then defines, how do we determine that? Do we determine that from state assessments? Do we determine that from vendor assessments, company purchased tests, or is it through SLOs, student learning objectives, that the teachers design, are approved by a committee, and then are assessed at the end through that same committee on did each student grow as well. So the right-hand side is all on student growth, and that's a new concept for the administrators as well as the teachers, is that in the past we centered on teacher performance, and this is right now is 50% teacher performance and 50% student achievement, and the caveat is right now. We're going to get to that, I hope, in a couple minutes.
As I say, with the changes that are going on. So the principal takes the time and puts all this, enters this information, and then someone else spits out, there's 4 ratings, correct?
There are 4 ratings on the teacher performance side, as well as on the student measurement side. Accomplished, which is what we all hope to achieve. Skilled, and that is a new term. And as I talked about the evolution of all the different bills, originally the term was proficient, and it has changed to skilled. Developing and ineffective. So you're going to have on both sides that rating, the teacher performance side as well as the student growth side for that teacher. Both of those are then inputted into the state electronic system, and that system then will take that information and will populate out the final summative rating for each teacher.
And we talked about, just the amount of paperwork and time. It's very time consuming for the principals to go and check out all the classrooms. So we were able to get additional support for our principals by hiring some retired administrators to come back and help us.
Our board was very gracious to say the least, to understand that what we have done this year and what is required is that in the past, approximately 35, maybe up to 40% of our teachers were evaluated. With the new process, and currently, and that's another caveat we'll come back to, is that currently this year, all teachers with that definition as teacher is evaluated. And that's a real interesting concept, Joni, because what that means, and we've done some calculations to determine for our principals, and what we know that we believe our principals are investing a minimum of 540 hours on these teacher evaluations. That really comes to about 68 full days, or approximately 38% of the time of the school administrator is spending on teacher evaluations. And you can't forget in that they also are evaluating non-certificated individuals, which would be our custodial staff, our food service staff, our clerical staff, and teacher aides. So that 38% is not quite accurate in what they're doing. The other thing I'll tell you is our teachers are spending a great deal of time on the evaluation system. That evaluation committee I mentioned just completed a survey, and our survey indicates our teachers are spending, at least for the first round, a minimum of about 4 to 6 hours to prepare for this evaluation. And so over the whole cycle, we predict teachers will spend approximately 36 hours preparing for their various observations.
And I know that the Senate bill, House bill, they've all heard up in Columbus about the time and what have you, and we've talked about how it's changed, and every time we think we have it right, you know, it changes. But one of the things they are looking at is if you're an accomplished, maybe you don't have to be evaluated every year. So they're still trying to massage a lot of things, right?
Correct. Senate Bill 229 is out on a horizon, and it is past the Senate, and it's now in the House for their approval. If it's approved and then signed by our governor, it would take effect this July. So for next school year, if at the end of the cycle a teacher receives accomplished, they would be evaluated, as you said, every 3 years. 3 years. A skilled teacher would then be evaluated every 2 years. So that might give some relief to the administrators and really to the teachers as far as where they're focusing a lot of their time.
And on the other end of that, if I'm labeled ineffective, do I get extra support? Or are they looking at anything different on that end? Or does the principal just know I really need to work with Kathy and
if
walk
a
her through
teacher
it?
is ineffective, there are different action steps that are taking place. A plan of improvement is incorporated into what they're doing, and certainly they would have 3 observations and a significant number of additional walkthroughs. What we're trying to do is have even more conversations, professional conversations with everyone, and that's really what this model is forcing, is more professional comments about our skills and about our talents and how we can improve. It truly is a growth measure.
Well, we talked about the change, and we had our instructional department on a segment as well, Keith Millard and Terry Fitton, about all the changes instructionally. So it's sort of like a double whammy. So I think staffs are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and you talked about principals. I know one principal said, I used to watch TV with my family, I still do, but now I have my laptop in my lap and I'm typing up evaluations. So it's changed a lot. As you said, for the good, there's no doubt about it. But it's the amount of change all at once, I think, is getting people maybe a little scared out there and crazy.
You know, I think so. We mentioned earlier, our board has done a really nice job of trying to help support our administrators. And what we have done is bring in retired administrators. And what that has done is freed up our administrators to be in the classrooms to gather all the data. But as you said, that's only a part of it.
Right.
Once you have the data and the information, you then need to put it in the evaluation instrument. And that's what is indeed taking so much time. And that's just, as you said, one part of a lot of change that's coming down the pike from, you know, our legislature, from federal as well as state requirements that are coming around.
Is there a deadline, like you have to have this, there's like 2 or 3 evaluations. Are there deadlines that I have to have it done by the end of this month or whatever?
That's something new that's changed as well. In the past, all administrative contracts were voted on by boards of education in the month of March, teachers in April. All of that has been pushed back now to June 1st. So there is additional time to gather the data and to do the additional observation if that's needed as well.
Yeah, but again, a lot of time for the principals. And you mentioned the principal has an evaluation, same as teachers. So our superintendent, Mrs. Baker, has been working hard on getting her evaluation system and models all ready to go as well.
Absolutely. So, not only are the principals evaluated, but all of our deans and assistant principals are evaluated as well. And in order to do those evaluations, just like the teachers, one has to be credentialed for the principal evaluation as well. That is additional training and an additional test to be credentialed for that as well.
And we mentioned we were one of the first ones to do this, and it's my understanding you've got calls from other school districts saying, help, what are we doing? I mean, so you're the go-to lady for a lot of districts that haven't started it yet.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's a very daunting task. I'm certainly, and I think that our teacher union, I think our teachers, our administrators would say they're very happy that we're where we are. Starting up that mountain is a very, as I said, daunting task. And we have learned from where we are and certainly are on the right track and are helping a lot of other districts because they are not a race to the top district or their master contract has not expired, have not been in the position of implementing for this year. So, if we can give them ideas, suggestions that, that we learned, we're certainly welcome and
you
do
made
that.
presentations, have you not?
I did.
Yes.
I was asked to be a part of a statewide initiative where we went over Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati to talk a little bit about not only from the legal perspective, but from the perspective of the school. Exactly, we know what the new legal requirements are. Now, what does that mean to us as an employee administrator of the district? So that was a fun opportunity to do that. And certainly all districts are going out of their way to try and make this work.
Right. Well, I know at the beginning of the school year, you talk to any teacher and they were nervous because it's the unknown. But what I've heard then after they went through the first evaluation walkthrough, they were able to breathe a sigh of relief because they understood a little bit better. And, I know I can do better on this, and I did well at this. So I think sometimes the unknown is a scary part, but once you've gone through it once or twice, you can calm down a little bit.
I think they realize it really is a growth measure. Anytime you're talking about your performance and anytime you're talking about your performance tied to your employment, that's always a scary aspect. But I have heard over and over again, I made it. It was really okay.
I felt like I heard a collective sigh come October, November.
Almost, and I think it's because we all collectively have worked together. Our evaluation committee, the teachers union, the administration, our board, and we have a good product, and I think all we can do is even be better as we go through it. And our survey that we conducted in December more or less said the teachers, many teachers have put in a lot of time preparing, and that's only helped them to be more successful.
Great. Is there anything we're missing from this? As you said, it's ongoing. There are constant changes, but we just do what we can and move on, right?
Correct. There are additional changes that we haven't talked about with Senate Bill 229, and they will, that 50%, how we talk, there's 50% on the teacher performance and 50% on the student growth measures. There is in this bill that the student growth measures would go down to 35%, with the other 15% to be determined by the district as to what we would do. So
it'll be a local decision,
correct,
that other 15%.
Correct. So not only are you learning the new evaluation process, you're also having to stay current on what the next change might be that would affect this process somewhere.
So it's always ongoing.
It's always ongoing.
Well, unfortunately, we know you're retiring the end of this year, so that's going to be tough to somebody replace you because of your years of knowledge and service. So I'd say on behalf of the students and the staff and the community, we thank you for your 30 years plus of being in our district.
Thank you so much.
Nice job.
It's been a true pleasure, and I can't wait to see what other things the district's going to do.
Well, good. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Joni.
And for TV Hamilton, I'm Joni Kopis, and we'll see you next time on School Matters, because school matters.